Hello guys, LukeJ speaking. Welcome to the book reviews, episode number 23. And today I read you Priceless Memories by Bob Barker. This is going to be chapter 1 of this book. And I know it's getting late while I'm taping this, but I'm releasing it tomorrow on my Vimeo, on my Facebook, YouTube channel. But I'm going to read to you it now because I'm speaking a little bit quietly and I'm going to whisper like I normally did in the videos. While mom and my stepdad are napping and sleeping all the time. But it's going to be a late night video as I'm taping this. But as of now, I'll just read the book now and because I just came back from the Heyman Charlie show, Heyman Outcast, and I wanted to read chapter 1 before I get some sleep tonight. So let's do it now. So we got, shall we? So we got. Okay. Okay, chapter 1 is Truth or Consequences, my First Nation show. Okay. We're gonna be on page 45 after this. First, page 45. There we go. Chapter 1. Truth or Consequences, my first national show. The Truth or Consequences job that Ralph Edwards gave me was definitely my big break. Okay? And it was the foundation of all the wonderful things that came later. Was I lucky? Yes. After all, I have been doing radio shows for years. Wow, okay? But I have no television experience. Okay. But did I work to make the most of the opportunity that Ralph gave me? You bet I did. And I benefited a great deal from Ralph and the very talented staff involved with that show. I was confident that I could do the job. Okay. After all, I have done audience preparation for so long I was comfortable with the show format. Also, I knew Ralph was as confident in me. I respect for this judgment. So I thought to myself, can you do this, Barker? I went out and did it. However, I did make consequences. Excuse me. If next page. True Consequences made Bob Barker, at least has made me nationally known and launched my career. It also made me some pretty good money. It is also to remember that the show have already been around for 16 years. Wow. Okay. 10 radio on 6 on television. Okay. Prior to my arrival, Ralph Edwards was brilliant. Brock is a legend. He created the show. Jack Bailey was famous as host for Queen for the Day. Helen faced Pat as host of the show at night for 2 years, just before I got the nod. Okay? I was stepping into the aisle portion in 4 ways. First, the show had a long, successful track record. Second, I was working with incredible talent. They included not only Ralph, but also producer Ed Bailey, who have worked with Ralph for years, and also the associate producer Charlie Wine, who left his job at NBC's chief announcer in Chicago to join Ralph's production company and the operative Milt Lawson, one of our writers who later would start the Magic successful job in Hollywood. Third, as I look back at the time period, 1956 and to the 1960s, it was absolutely heyday on television. The absolute advertising industry was booming. Okay, the country was proposing, it was a national television audience grew. The major networks were in the perfect position to ride the waves of popularity and viewership. There was excitement about television and about broadcasting, about advertising and new products and new technology. We're in Hollywood and centered on entertainment, and this was shaping up to be a golden age of television programming. Finally, Ralph thought that the show played in my strengths. He pointed out that I've had for years of experience had living when working with audiences. I could choose my own contestants. I could do my own role map. He told me he was sure I would be completely comfortable with doing Truth or Consequences. Ralph says TRC is a good fit for you, and you were a good fit for the show. All of this was music to my ears. Made no mistake, it was a major break and it was extraordinary opportunity for me. I did go on for have a fabulous 18-year run with Truth for Consequences. Okay. But when I started, I was hired on a 4-week trial basis, and while Ralph was the way pronouncers were confidently in my corner, and I have no guarantees that would be betrayed by beyond that initial release period. I told you that Darby Joe was my audience, and for the audition, and well, she was right there laughing for me in my early shows as well. And I meant not to say two, just because maybe put a mistake in there, but anyway. I could always depend upon Darby Joe to help in every way possible. As I mentioned, my first show was on December 31st, 1956. We did the show back in those days in the NBC studio at its corner at Sunset and Vine. The reason for that 4-week clause in my contract, I learned later, when I was out of 11 people voting in the original hiring meeting. I got the only one vote, but I only got the right one. Rob Edwards. He told them, "This guy is your man. You gave him 4 weeks, and see if you don't agree." During that first show, I said to Rob on air, "Following you and Jack Bailey, I look like I'm heading after Babe Ruth, the late Babe Ruth, that is." And Lou we pronounce it, Rob said, "Well, we've got to bring along the Minories and the Mangoes," and he was very kind. I never forget that. I was definitely nervous backstage before the show. My heart was beating like so fast that I thought I may have a heart attack before I could go out there. But on the show itself, I wasn't nervous. Next page. The staff and crew did everything possible to make me feel at home. The show went well. We have Jack Dempsey, the former heavyweight boxing champion, on the first show. He was a real gentleman. Jack was much bigger than I had expected. I've read that he was a rowdy small heavyweight, but small was not a word. I was associated with him. His hands were huge. When I shook hands with him, he seemed as his hand covered mine, as all the way up to the elbow. Excuse me, misspoke. We also gave away with the Cell Baker 45 seer called the Seahawk. That was a huge prize back then. Years later, I remember when we have another boxing champion, Joe Louis, on TRC, something like that. That's long after he had been champion. He was retired. He was a very nice fellow, soft spoken, but outgoing. It was a good conversationalist. Way to pronounce his word, but anyway. I interviewed him about his some length, and I asked him, "Who was your toughest opponent?" When he answered the IRS, everyone in the audience knew exactly what he meant. Poor old Joe, that they knocked him around the bit. Tremendous popularity of Truth or Consequences over the years was the result of the show's humor, the games, and practical jokes in the audience populations. We also had many celebrity guests, but the prizes added to the excitement. Many of the produced products given away for new additions to the American homes. We gave away refrigerators, washers, dryers, and other large home appliances. Even a small gift like coffee, pre-rocators, where you pronounce it. With new products, the advertisers, sponsors, and consumers were all excited about. During my first 7 years in TRC, we were sometimes tape and El Chubby and Fear. We were back and forth between there and the studio and the Sunset and Vine. Talk about landmark locations, Sunset and Vine, the El Champion Fear. I'll never forget doing the show live in the El Champion Fear 8 a.m. Can you imagine some shit coming through to True Consequences at 8 a.m.? Remarkably, we would pack every day. We filled the place. On the marquee it said free donuts and Bob Barker, which I never heard of that before. But anyway. When I finished my 4-week, well, I did bits and pieces, but I tried anyway. But anyway. When I finished my 4-week participation and they hired me on long terms, I've signed a change to Bob Barker and free donuts. Wow. I told him I'm not going to be billed until the donuts are any longer. Doing True for Consequences at the El Champion Fear was no problem whatsoever. As I wrote earlier, the Tennessee Ernie Ford show was sitting there regularly. So it went well lighting for television, and the sound system was excellent. We just moved one regular set to the El Champion stage, and with our regular technicians and crew, we were ready to get on. But they were the happiest in Studio D at the NBC Studios and Sunset Vine. At that time, I think Studio D was the best studio in Hollywood for audience presentation. Excuse me, but anyway. The seats were banked up for stage levels, so every person in the audience could see everything that happened on stage perfectly. Folks in the first few rows were at risk when they started throwing the lemon marquee pies, for which TRC was famous for, and they says the audience was the stage when the stage was completely uninhibited. Okay, won't pronounce this word, but anyway, there wasn't any step. Yeah, it was began to rise at the stage level. Sorry about that, but anyway, which was a confident when we did as a consequence that required me to go into the audience. Sorry about that, but yeah, let's continue on. If I sounded if I would respond up Studio D, I would assume you that I was. So much so, in fact, there was an old NBC studio next page. dem- demolished. Charlie Lawn saved the studio D, flashing red on the air sign as a gift for me as I hung it over the bar in my house. A home, excuse me. We were taping Studio D. We could do things out on the street as well. We could use hidden cameras to play jokes on people walking by the studio. We use surrounded by traffic and tourists. We have a big sign outside that says "True for Consequences," and many tourists decided on the spot to come in and watch the show. But when the network decided that we were going to color from black and white, they moved the new studios in Burbank. Wow. See where this is going. We already did a lot in the first CRC. We were one of the first shows to broadcast in color. And we were on one of the first shows to be taped in Burbank. Okay, makes sense, but anyway. All show will be taped occasionally, but we're the first national television show to be taped on a regular schedule. Later on, we were the first show to produce directly to syndication with the Merrill Media Television Network. Okay, before that time, all the shows in syndication has been reruns. Wow. Both is difficult to imagine now. In 1964, the NBC studio in Burbank was literally in the middle of the field. We hated it. Wow. We lost all the foot traffic we had in Hollywood. So there's no walk-ins. And worse yet, we couldn't play jokes on people walking by. So the people, because nobody walked by. Strange enough. If you wanted to come and show, you have to take the bus or drive to Burbank. Tourists to have trouble even find Burbank. Sad, no. On the happier note, one of the best aspects of True for Consequences was that if it was always fresh, we did that 3 consequences a day, and each one is different and self-contained. We produced 5 shows a week. I always said I was lucky to get into True for Consequences job early in my career because I learned so much doing it, and it was preparing me so well for other things I did in broadcasting. Each consequence was like a drama. You start with a question, reveal the consequence, carefully build towards the climax, and then pay off with a hilarious finish. Each consequence was a learning experience. Rarely doing my first few years in the show. I believe many people knew the opportunity to demonstrate their sense of humor. One of the great parts of my job is constantly bring up the humor and the people to enjoy it. That was one of the rewards of my work. Seeing people having fun and laughing uproariously, not just as others, but as themselves. Excuse me. Choosing contestants was like catching the play or the movie. I knew what the act or stunt required. I tried to find the best person in the audience to play the role. I went through the audience and asked who would like to play True for Consequences. Practically all the people in the audience raised their hands. Then I picked one and asked him or her to stand up. When you stand up, you are no longer part of the audience, and you're in the industry now, and all the eyes are on you. I wanted to see how the personal contestants were going to be to react, and how the audience were going to react to them. Some people have the wonderful thing. As soon as they stand up, everybody loves them. I say, "What's your name?" And he just said Fred Jones. I never heard of this guy. And right away, people love him. Audiences react to this way. That to certain people, select contestants, very carefully, based on the personal contestants' reactions. Next page. The audience reactions, and my knowledge of what the contestant consequences involve. Excuse me, I misspoke. But anyway, it's 20 minutes so far. Okay. For example, I might choose a younger man rather than an older man, and I agree with that because the consequence involves something political, may as required couples. So I look for married folks who are there together. Other times I might look for older woman or man, and sometimes middle age. And of course, we have children from time to time. On two of the consequences, I almost always work with contestants who are not pre-selected or coached. Almost all the contestants were picked by me, while in the studio audience, I prefer that way. I prefer to work with rehearsed people, while in the audience, but because that subcutaneously is so vital, I think that's part of its reaction is a major part of the success of both Truth or Consequences and The Price is Right, which is good. So many memorable comic moments and are scripted. Excuse me, I misspoke, but anyway. In fact, they're the best kind. The consequences did have a week to worry about being on television. They haven't had their hair done or selected their best dress. Okay. They weren't even made up, and they haven't. They have their normal street makeup on. And they were a woman. And they were suddenly on television. Just like the people at home were watching them and dining with them. Above, I know that almost always work with contestants were not pre-selected. And I agree with that. Because at times we use what we call set contestants. These might be a husband who help us play a joke, and his wife, or a woman who would help us play a joke in the club, that sort of thing. Back then, it was all about creating some surprise entertainment with ordinary people. I listened to a successful hours on radio. Tom Benson used to do a show called Breakfast on Hollywood and Vine Street in a little restaurant. Wow. You take a microphone and just go from table to table, talking with the people eating there. And one group of people was likely to or entertain. He stay with them. If not, he move on to the next table. It was fun and interesting, whatever that means. You can never sell a show like that today. It requires experience to do peer audience part participation, and today there is almost no place where you can get that experience. Years ago, almost every radio station, large or small, originated at least a few shows that required the host to talk with ordinary people. That is no true. So young people have no place to develop their skills, no matter how much natural talent you have for audience presentations. There is no substitute for experience. And I agree with that right there. Ralph and I grew up in a different world. Ralph was a master host, one of the very best, and he knew that the invitation might be the highest form of priority. But invitation was not the way to go if you were hosting a television show, which I agree. Before I did Truth or Consequences for the first time, Ralph told me, "Bob, you're the star of the show now. Go out there and do it that way. Don't imitate me or anyone else. Do it Bob Barker's way." And I agree with that. I think Ralph's advice to me was right on. I believe it so much. I repeated every young host was ever asked me to advise, do it your way. Don't forget that Frank Sinatra even put to music. In the early days of Truth or Consequences, someone told me you gotta remember put your playing to the ladies who is fine but Irene Bohr. Somewhere in the room with her is a baby crying. With one hand she's trying to iron and the other, next page. Okay. Other hand, she has on the television dial where you have to capture her attention and entertain her, and she's going through to turn the dial. That's what you always have to remember when you are doing that show. You're always talking to that person at home. If you ignore that fact, you are in trouble. On Truth or Consequences, we had the camera for me to speak directly to the home audience. Every once in a while, when I have it talking to the contestants, I turn locally directly into the camera and spoke up to the audience at home. That was important, of course. You want the studio audience to be part of the from the moment that the show begins to the moment it ends. You want to keep them completely involved. Just gather them and cradle them, but you never want to forget the fact that the person at home is watching. Okay, well, I agree. On Truth, always made sure that nobody answered the question correctly. Always chosen the contestants because they were just right with the consequences. I didn't want them to lose them. I was made certain that the questions and answers were so commandy, we pronounce it crazy, that there was almost no chance of the correct answers. For example, these followings: 3 questions and answers. Okay. The question was, what did one eye say to the other eye? The answer was, just between us, something smells. And the second one is, which side of the duck had the most feathers? The answer is the outside. And the third and final question is, what do snakes do after they have a fight? And the answer was, they hiss to make up. Okay, now. Okay. How many more pages? Okay, we got 13, like 10 more pages left after this is over. But anyway, it's something that did answer question. I've discovered that it was a 2-part question. Okay. Only once in a while, once in all the years I hosted TRC. Sorry, I didn't know, but anyway. The contestant answered the second part of the question. Of course, I immediately made up the 3-part question. No one ever got away. The production team on Truth or Consequences was like a well-oiled meat machine. Excuse me. And we had fun doing the show. The writers were fantastic. Some of the stunts and games they came up with were amazing. One of the most popular acts was the reunions. One moment the audience was howling, and one of the consequences in the next moment we have on the reunions was a soldier and his mother, or lost brothers, or something like that. Frequently, everyone sometimes, including the production staff, was in tears. One reunion I will never forget. We have three of these two Italian sisters on the show who have not been seeing each other for 30 years. Wow. One lived in California in the San Francisco Valley, and the other, and this one's living in Italy. We have a sister from Italy flown in, and we were going to surprise a sister who lived in the valley. We got a sister who lived here in California on stage, who have her Italian sister walk out from the wings. It was too much for her. Her mouth dropped open, and she fainted away out cold. Felt worried for the Italian sisters at this point. Moving on. It was toward the end of the show, and we couldn't revive her. And I have to sign up with 2 or 3 members of the staff still over the trying to wake her up. We decided to take the sisters back the next day. We could not show our audience that the victim reunion was recovered. So the next day I opened the show. Standing on stage was a sister from the valley, one for the fainted, and I told the audience, next page. Remember yesterday. Well, she was okay. We revive her, and everything's fine. But let's bring out our sister again, and the sister Vanilli walks on stage. Boom. The valley sister Spain again. This time was to hold her off. No more explanations. The reunions were such a popular features on the show that they spawned This Is Your Life, which ran from NBC from 8 years. Charlie Long is associate producer as well as our announcer, orchestrated all the reunions. His brother was a deponent in the State Department, and I could see why. Charlie had the same genes. He was a perfect gentleman. We call him the proponent in the reunions because he arranged so many of them so well. It's gonna be a lot of pages because I have to get tired, get some sleep. So, yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen next in these next pages. So, yeah. Anywho. And how long do we tape this for? Okay. It's been on for 34 minutes now. Okay. Where was I? My wife, Darby Jo, was a frequent and popular visitor to the show. Sometimes her appearance was my idea. More often the writers would suggest it wherever they were in the dry spell. It was getting down to the time when they have to come up with something. They said, let's do a Darby Jo act. I said, fine. We'll bring her back to save the day. I will never forget our first Darby Jo consequence. It set the pace for all the who's those that fall. I selected two ladies from the studio audience whose assignment would be the question. Three women then chose to the one who was Mrs. Bob Barker. After sending the two ladies backstage, I chose two more ladies from the studio audience who would like to join Darby Joe, claimed to be my wife. For these roles, I selected two ladies to impress me in being clever, witty, and able to be fast in an live situation. One of these pony lives are for the audience proved to be the fast on their feet beyond the wildest expectations. Wow. Responding to questions during the playing the game, she accused me of consequently, continuously, complain about her cooking, spending every free amount moment of her golf course, drinking so many martinis, that I couldn't carry in the conversation after 8:30 in the evening. Of course, the audience loved it, every word of it. The studio rocked it with laughter. But as usual, Darby Joe had the last laugh. She looked up at me and sweetly said, "Honey, this lady had you pegged right down the line." Two Edgar Garners correctly chose Darby Joe as Mrs. Bob Barker. My mother was on Truth or Consequences occasionally. In fact, the producers even played a prank on me with my mother. When my mother was still living in Missouri, they have her flown out here to surprise me. Wow. I have selected a lady from the audience, and I expected her to buy around to the turntable. But when the turntable came around, there was my own mother smiling at me. I was blown away, totally surprised. I behaved like a typical contestant. I turned my back on the camera and did everything wrong. I never forget, they have really surprised me. We even have my bassist hound on the show. Every my career, I've been mistakenly called Mr. Baker. Every time, yeah, he misspoke. Went so many times that I named my pet bassist hound Mr. Baker. He would come on the show to say hello. The audience loved him. So still to this day, I'll be in the pet store, something like that, and someone will say, "Oh, I used to love watching this on Troop of Consequences. I love your dog." That was the last apparition that animals make. Next page. We also did a lot of outdoor stunts and jokes on the show. There was an office building next to the NBC studio at Sunset and Vine. It was about the 3 stories. I guess one day we hung a piano about up there, coming out in the 4th floor window on the cable. Then we had one of our guys on the street holding a rope. We fixed it to see it appear, so it appeared he was holding up the piano by holding the rope, but of course he wasn't. A young man came walking down Vine, and a man called up to him, asking him to help him just for 1 minute. Our man says, "Please, sir, I'm holding that piano up there. It was very expensive. Would you please just hold it for 1 moment while I've gone to the building for my helper? But for goodness sakes, don't drop it. Don't leave. Hold that piano." But the pedestrian said, "Sure." Just he holding the rope, and then there's a little jerk up the rope, and the piano kind of moves, and all of a sudden the whole thing breaks off, and the piano comes crashing down the street. Ugh. The fellow dropped the rope, um, and took off the running up Vine Street and as fast as he could go, calling out to speak to him. Hey, it's Bob Barker. You on triple consequences, but he just kept Ryan and Brian. We never caught him and it located him later, so we cut, gave him the prize. More than the pay, but the audience love it. Ugh, really? But anyway, we did another stunt outside Graham's Chinese Beer that played Stanley. We played Stanley. Hmm. We have a small truck parked in front of the theater, and Black Witch, with a cage filled with straw and a sizable chimpanzee. Oh, it wasn't a chimpanzee, okay. It was a actual fellow named Janos, Priceless. Okay. And he couldn't convince you that you were a chimp when you was in costume. Weird enough. He was amazing. Anyways, he's in the cage, and Milt Larson, one of our riders, was up there in the back in the truck. Yeah, cage door closed and waited for the bright-looking guy to come by. Someone perfect with a joke. Here comes a man, big, broad, shouldering fellow who had found out later he had played professional football for the Los Angeles Dons, now known as Los Angeles Dodgers. But anyway, Milt says to the guy, "Excuse me, sir, would you help me for a moment? I have my chimpanzee in here. This lock isn't working properly. I'm gonna go in the theater to get my tools. Would you just hold the door shut for me for a couple moments?" The man says yes, and he's happy to. So the former football player gets up there and holds the cage door, and Milt says thank you, and he goes into fear. There used to be a restaurant next to Grubman's, and that was I was lying down beside our hidden camera. The cameraman and I were watching the gag unfolded. We have hidden microphones all over the place. The chimp appeared to be over the corner asleep, but after Milt goes into fear, the chimp wakes up and starts blowing a little straw and around the cage. Now this big virtual man holding the cage door and starts talking baby talk to the chimp. That's alright, baby. Daddy will be right back. Just relax, baby. It's alright. And the chimps move around a little more and moves towards the door. Really? Okay, the baby talk continues. It's alright, baby. Back up, baby. Get back, baby. Daddy will be right back. He's still baby talking to the chimp. When all of a sudden... Next page, but anyway. The chimp grabs the cage door and flings it open. Now the guy has dropped the baby talk and he's yelling, "Back off, you son of a!" I'm not gonna. Yeah. Back up, back you. Yeah, down. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna swear, cause son of a bitch. Back you. I'm not gonna. I don't know what he said in this book, sadly, but anyway. And the chimp keeps after him, and now the man runs in the fear with the chimp chasing him, and he's yelling the whole time, "Leave me alone, you bitch." I'm not gonna cuss. I am gonna cuss. Sorry about that, David. Down. Back, you son of a bitch. Don't touch me. Bleep this and bleep that. yeah, fuck that and fuck this. But anyway, and you, yeah, bleepity bleep bleep, whatever the hell that means. I was laughing so hard that I couldn't even get off the floor. We could get bleep consequence. We play on our hair, just like it happened with all that bleeps. So Milk comes out and tell him it's alright. It's not really a chimp. It's Janos Pocasia pretend to be a chimp. And I'm still laughing at the floor. And I could probably call out the hidden spot and go up into this fellow who's not in a good mood. And I said, I'm Bob Barker. You're on True for Consequences. He says, yes, I know you are who you are. And then I tell him what fun Sunset has been and how we been a great prize we have for him. And I tell him we have a fancy new billboards table for him. He looks right to me and says, what the fuck am I going to do with that? Sorry, I'm going to cuss in this book review. So that's going to be viewer discretion advised this one. So there you go. It was a perfect end to the bleep consequence. And another show we involved a bunch of kids who would play in the Little League Baseball to be in the audience. They were all 9 or 10-year-old boys. We got 2 girls, maybe. They were 14 or 15. One girl was a professional softball pitcher. They throw a softball like lightning. And the other girl, her sister, was also a professional, was her catcher. We planned these girls in the audience, but not together, and pretended they boys without, it was just picked them randomly from the audience. And I said someone's like, how about you, young lady? Would you like to play? Yes, come on. I put a few of the boys from the Little League group and said, let's have a game. I told them we're going to play softball. You 3 guys are going to hit, and you, young lady, you the catcher, and you will be the pitcher, please. She goes in the way across the stage. The boys are licking their chops, saying, oh, this is going to be fun. I pick up properly eager, young fellow up and hit. And this professional pitcher throws the ball and so fast past him. He doesn't twitch a muscle. Why didn't you swing it? I asked. He says, that's a phony ball. The audience roared with laughter. Oh my God, help me. That's not a phony ball, I said, and I took it from the catcher. Look at this. That's not a phony ball. Well, then she got a phony arm, he said, and the audience hollered even louder. Jesus. Things didn't always got explained on True Consequences. There's part of fun in the show. We all kinds of things we got to go wrong, but I just made the best of it. And the show rolled on. We got props didn't work. They have camera or microphone malfunctions. Sometimes guests would react unexpectedly, but even when acts didn't come off smoothly, there was always humor in them, and the audience seemed to love it. Okay, we have things that we have failed miserably, but when they next page did frequently, I could make it amusing. Besides, people love to see me sanding their egg on my face. Okay, we're almost done here because I'm gonna wrap it up soon because I'm gonna be in bed coming up. But anyway, these are so many details involved in this reunion that may occasionally went awry. For one, we have a deserving young Marine flown home from Korea to surprise his wife. One of his wife's friends arranged to have her sit on the bench in front of her studio at Sunset and Vine. And one crew on the crew was from us, a city bus which we rented for the day, was supposed to pull up in front of the bench. The Marine was going to step off the bus and take his weapon to arms. I described exactly what we had planned to our studio audience and viewers, and I excuse me, empathize, excuse me, with a fine record with the Marine had, and how courageous the young wife had been during the months that she and the children had essentially awaited his return. I built the boy point, the application for that glorious moment when husband and wife was to be reunited. And then I was in the commercial. When the commercial, excuse me. After commercial, I did a quick review on to make sure that every viewer realized how fortunate he or she went to share this moment with his loving husband and wife. Then exact time to the second, we have agreed to the bus to arrive on the scene. I cut to our side of the camera. The Marine and his wife was sitting on the bus stop bench, chatting. The bus had arrived during commercial. I looked in the camera and said, "It must have been a great reunion. I wish you had seen it." Sometimes later, after many flawless successes, another reunion went sore. This one was more dramatic than even the soap opera affair. This time was reuniting a fine young Sarah and his dear old mother. The Sarah sister brought their mother to the NBC studio in Burbank. The mother who thought that they were to be part of the group's touring the Bachelor, the sister knew that was the group's considered the folks that I took out the TRC audience to help our little chapter to which of course each would receive the prize. Okay. This was a plan. This was a plan, and as the tour group arrived on stage, every light in the studio was to go out except for one powerful spotlight casting a pole of light directly on center stage. As you might have guessed on cue, the sailor was to step into the pool of light. The mother who rushed to her beloved son. The sister will join them, and the family happiness was re-age. But all this would not be the case. We have all the really bad experiences with the best laid plans, haven't we? And I agree with that. Okay. As usual, I did my brief build up for the momentous moment. I would like to think that I had the folks in our studio on the edges of our seats, the folks in our homes as well. As they were seated, that was received the signal that the tour group was stepping through the store. I asked the lighting man to dose the lights. He's more incorporated. He shut down every light in this place, including all the important spotlight. The entire studio was in the total darkness, and it stayed that way for almost 2 minutes, during which I was keep talking for the inspiring effort to keep viewers from speaking NBC has gone off the air, and to keep them from changing channels. What do I say? I have no idea. But I get the letter from a lady who wrote, "Bob, you do your best work in the dark," and I am scared of what happened to Bob Barker that night. At the dark of the day or night, I don't know. We'll see. By the way, eventually we got the sailor and his mother together and eventually lived happily ever after. And that last 2 pages, I'm going to wrap things up. There's many memorable moments and true consequences. I have treasure chest of memories of all the fun we have doing that show. Of course, it was special for me, all the celebrity guests we had, and the average person guests. The non-celebrities were just as memorable. Everyone knows I'm an animal lover. I'll tell you about another reading that featured a boy and his dog that touched me as deeply as a reunion we ever did. We had heard about a sailor who was stationed in Florida, who had received orders to come out and here and to one of the naval bases around Los Angeles. He was married and had a little son, about 9 and 10 years old. The son who has a basis home, but he didn't have enough money to move the dog. So left the dog with a friend in Florida. They came out to California. The boy got a job delivering papers, so he can save enough money to get a dog out of here. But it was going slowly. We heard about this, and of course the dog flown out here, and somehow we arranged to get the boy to show how to have him end up talking with me and in the hallway, where we have a hidden camera and a hidden microphone. The boy didn't know we were on the air. During our conversation, he mentioned his dog. He said he was working to save money to bring him out here. And I said, "You really love that dog, don't you?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I do." The dog name was Bo. In that moment, one of our people from the show comes down the hallway and he says, "And lays Bo in the leash." The boy looks up at the dog and says, "That looks like Bo." And I said, "That is Bo." And that is Bo, the dog. He hugged him, kissed him, and hugged him some more. It's a precious moment. I was so touched and could hardly speak. I have tears in my eyes. Wasn't the only one. The cameraman was all crying. And later I mentioned the director. He said not only you, but Angie Rapsa in the booth have tears in their eyes, and that haven't happened often. This is one of the most touching moments we ever had. I was 45 great years. I have 35 great years on Price is Right. The True Consequences will always hold a special place in my heart for many reasons. It was my first national television job. I have the opportunity to work with one of my heroes, Rob Edwards, and Dorothy Joe and I began to enjoy more, frankly, security. We didn't change our lifestyle much, but the opportunity to do the show was a fulfillment of a dream we had. And he typed "had" 2 times. Bob Barker did. It was also a joyous polarizing time in television, and so much in the country was energized and united by television. The world entertainment industry was thriving. We were living in Hollywood, working in Hollywood. I was having fun doing all I love to do. True for Consequences was a fun-filled, richly rewarded 18-year ride for me. I always cherished those early years. I was able to have Rob's son, Gary Edwards, who was a little boy when I went to work with his father, in front of his role 5 decades later. Cheers me, I was taped my last Price is Right on June 6, 2007. And that was chapter 1. And I read it for for over an hour now. We still have chapter 2 and 3 to go all the way up to 14 chapters in the book to read, and I have to focus on the final thoughts in the book. Because even though I haven't finished the book yet, doesn't mean I have to wrap things up at the moment. The book at the moment. So that's just it. But anyways, guys, that was it for book reviews, episode number 23. Now, man, excuse me, I may have to go lay down tonight. For the night. I'm so exhausted, and need to go to sleep for the night. Till next time, so LukeJ goodbye. Peace out, baby. We get more videos, guys, very soon. Till then, JoeSaint out. See ya.